Debby Montgomery Johnson, founder of the nonprofit, The Woman Behind the Smile, and your host of Stand Up and Speak Up, a show that is about each and every one of us. Many of us have something we're hiding, something we're ashamed of, something that through no fault of our own or through our own making we keep hidden, and that in turn keeps us hidden from each other and the world. Good people go through terrible situations. Wise people know when and how to let it go. Everything that happens to us helps us grow, and while it may be hard to see it right away, the most important thing to do is to change your perception about your circumstances. Regardless of what your personal experiences or traumas have been, this showcase series is designed to ignite the light in you, as well as providing safe harbor, education, personal growth, and resources so that no matter where you are in your journey, you'll have the courage to move on when you're ready. Stand Up and Speak Up features ordinary people who've been through extraordinary situations and struggles and found the courage to step out from behind their smiles and speak up about their experiences and the lessons gleaned from those experiences. Everybody heals at a different pace, and we recognize that. So come on in, have a listen, and enjoy the ride at your own speed. Hello, everybody from foggy South Florida, but at least it's warm and sunny is going to come out later on. So South Florida is here. We've got Texas here. We've got the Midwest. We've got the mid-central cold, snowy country. And I have a wonderful guest from just a little bit north of me in Florida. Miss Christina Stewart is in the house. Christina, are you there?
I am here. Hi.
I'm so excited you're here. And we actually, before the show, we started talking. I'm like, hold that. We got so much to talk about, and I'm really excited. Because sometimes we just have to have a little bit of laughter in our life. And
all the time. What do you mean?
All the time. So I told you I got up this morning and I was doing some research and I was watching one of your YouTube videos and I was laying there in bed just kind of chilling out and I heard your laugh and your giggle. I'm like, oh, this is going to be such a fun show. So because in spite of life, we do have to find the joy and the laughter, and I'm looking forward to the show. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to it, too.
Yeah, let me introduce it, because you weren't feeling well, so I'm really glad you got your voice back, and we're going to stand up and speak up in a fun way. So let me tell everybody who you are. As many of my guests, Christina and I have connected through Women's Prosperity Network, and she's fabulous, and she's fun. So Christina Stewart is an international speaker, an award-winning photojournalist of over 20 years, a giggler extraordinaire, and a soul seer. Her laugh is contagious, as is her eternally optimistic attitude. Even as a survivor of childhood molestation, rape, and domestic violence, Christina finds the gifts in all of life's experiences. She brings light and love to everyone she meets. And boy, is that the truth. And it's interesting. I've heard that bio in several interviews that you've done, and in spite of the middle part there, which lists you as a survivor, and I'm going to change survivor to thriver because you've moved on really well.
Thank you.
Of childhood molestation, rape, and domestic abuse. We've had stories by other women that have been through this, and it truly amazes me how widespread that issue is.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm really grateful for the women that are speaking up about it, though, because those of us that fortunately didn't experience it are surrounded by women that have. And if we don't hear about it, we can't appreciate where you guys have been and how you come through it. So
right, absolutely.
thank you for speaking up, but thank you for doing it with, I love it, with the giggle, because I know the giggles haven't always been there. And I'd like to. We're going to dive right in, okay?
Sure.
We're going to go back to your childhood. Yeah. And it wasn't as long ago for you as it was for me, but but I want you to tell us a little bit about you. You know, where did you grow up? Where are you in the siblings lineup if you have brothers and sisters? And let me just hear a little bit about you.
I grew up in South Florida. I'm a native South Floridian, a very rare breed. I was born in Fort Lauderdale and spent most of my childhood down there. I moved up to Gainesville when I was 20 to go to college. So I spent my whole first 20 years in South Florida. I'm the oldest of just two. My brother is 7 years younger than I am, so it was a little bit more like he had a second mom than an older sister. We didn't really have much sibling rivalry. I babysat him. I was so excited to get a little brother. Like, he was like a little doll baby to me. Mm-hmm. At the time he was born, they wouldn't let people into the room with, to see my mom. I could just see him in the nursery through the window, and so when they brought him home, it's a very vivid memory for me. I ran into the house and sat in the recliner, and, they immediately, as soon as they walked in the house, put him in my arms. And I just was in love. And now he's 6'5", tattooed up and down, is a dad of 3 beautiful boys, and we're very close. We've had our ups and downs, as family does. And probably the strangest one is his father is the one who molested me when I was 9. So, and he was only 2 years old at the time, so he didn't actually know about the molestation and all that happened until he was an adult. And it was quite the conversation that he actually didn't have with me at first. He had it with my mom, and but he kind of figured it out, just some hints we'd been giving. He had a girlfriend at the time who had 2 young daughters, and his father was still alive, and we, were making it very clear that his dad shouldn't be alone with the girls. And he kind of started figuring it out. And so he asked my mom about it, not me, until later. And we've had many conversations about it. So, but when do you share that, right? Like, I've always talked about it, but when do you tell this little boy's that his father did this horrific thing to his sister, who he loves and adores? So that's a little bit of my childhood.
Wow. I'm sitting here speechless because I'm thinking, where do we go from there? Because I'm wondering, I'm wondering from his point of view, how did he feel? And how did he actually, or did you reach out to him, or did he reach out to you?
He reached out to my mom, and she said, do you really want to know the answer to it? He said, something happened between Chris and my dad, didn't it? And she said, do you really want to know the answer? And he said, yes. And so they had a 2-hour conversation. And when they were done, she called me just to kind of give me a heads up. And he didn't approach me about it for a while. I don't remember exactly how long, because this was at least 10 years ago. But we did have a conversation, and he was very torn because he did, we're very close. And he was very close with his father as well. He was an only child for his dad, as I am for mine. So his dad was very ill in addictive ways. He died young in a very not graceful death. Mm-hmm. And so, he was very torn, and he felt bad that his dad did this and he really didn't know how to handle it for a long time. And so when he broaches the subject and wants to talk about it more, I'm very open about what happened to me. And I think it helps that I've done so much of my own healing work around this that he sees that I'm okay. Okay. And so that's really the thing that matters most to him.
So his father has passed away?
Yes.
Okay.
Which was a very surreal experience for me as well, because I never wish anybody dead. In my bio, I'm an eternal optimist, and I practically jumped up and down with gratitude, with excitement that he was no longer of this world. And
that's an interesting place, though. Because it's gratitude and maybe a little bit of guilt that you're celebrating that.
So I'm happy about it.
Interesting.
Because he was in pain, so I empathize with him or sympathize with him in that way, wanted to be there for him because his dad had died. And also, he can't hurt anybody else in this world. So it was very strange for both of us, I think. But that was a while ago, and so he's grown and healed as have I.
How did your mom take the whole thing? Did she know about it?
Yeah. When I was 9, I kind of, they taught us in school, which I don't think they teach anymore, which scares me like crazy. But I was in 4th grade, and I remember them teaching us in school that, you know, it's a stranger down the street, or if someone offers you candy or tells you, like, shh, don't tell your mom, or I'll kill your mom if you do, or, you know, those kinds of things that they would teach us. But they never taught us that it could be somebody who your mother's married to, right? They didn't tell us it could be your uncle or your father or your stepfather. It was always, you know, somebody outside the family that they talked about. And so I didn't really know. Fortunately, it wasn't traumatic. There was, it wasn't as bad as it could have been. You know, I've heard other horrific stories. And
don't minimize it.
So yes, and that's why I stopped myself, because it's still traumatic for me and still impacted my life in huge ways. And so I kind of told her by accident. They had a fight, and we were talking, you know, and I said, yeah, and I don't like it when he does this. And I described what he did, and she said, tell me what happened. What is it? Tell me again. You know, what exactly did he do? And the next day in school, they called me out of my class, and the reaction of the authorities was actually more traumatic than the incident. And they put me in a little room with my guidance counselor. It must have been a broom closet that they put a desk in, because it was so tiny. She had to push her chair in so I could go to the other side of the desk and sit down. And I remember this room, or these people, like the resource officer and my mom and the principal and all these adults standing in the doorway, like staring at me while the guidance counselor asked me these questions and about, you know, what happened, because they wanted to see the extent of it. And I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know that it was wrong. And that was the moment that I separated. Like, a little part, my 9-year-old self was over. My childhood was done in that moment. And so basically she came to the school to prove that I was lying. She didn't want to believe it herself, because that meant her life was going to be totally upended, uprooted, and we had just moved into this new house in suburbia. She couldn't afford it on her own. She had a 2-year-old child, a 9-year-old daughter. So she wanted it not to be true. And unfortunately it was. And so we ended up going to counseling, and for many years after it was we had been ordered to, which I really truly believe saved our relationship. Her and I continuing to go to counseling through my high school years, until the counselor retired, actually. Really helped develop and strengthen our relationship after that.
So, this is a silly question, but did she stay with him, or did she leave him? Or?
Oh, no, he was ordered out of the house legally at first, and for about a year, and then she did invite him back into the house, and that for me was a huge betrayal. Those couple years are very foggy for me. I don't remember many of the details. I do remember that she just invited him back in. She says it was only for a couple of weeks before she realized, like, this isn't the right thing to do. This isn't going to work. And she asked him to leave again. So no, they didn't end up staying together. And yeah.
But trust-wise, that was a hit on your trust in her and in him. I mean, did you live in worry, or did you just separate from it at that point?
I really just separated from it. I started lashing out in middle school and got myself into having sex way too young. I continued the abuse on myself, basically, and ended up in a position where a 19-year-old raped me when I was 12. And I was I was getting drunk. I was skipping school. I was sneaking out of the house. So I was hell on wheels for a couple of years.
Yeah. Well, you were looking for love, and like that story, in all the wrong places. But you wanted someone to love you. It's just not the right persons.
Yeah, I've done a lot of work around worse. and deserving, and healing those wounds and understanding that that's not who I am, that contributed to my character and the experience. I don't regret any experience that I've ever chosen to do, any person I've ever invited into my life, anything that's happened for me. I absolutely have zero regrets. I look at everything as a gift because it's brought me to who I am today. I'm really proud of who I am now and who I'm becoming. And I wouldn't want to relive those things, and I would never wish them on anybody. And I'm so grateful that they happened.
Well, you're my kind of girl, because I totally understand. And the one thing, though, when you said that you wouldn't want to relive them, somebody did ask me once if I could go back and not go through some of the things I've been through. And I was like, you know what? I probably would do it again because of the growth and the changes that took place from the inside out, at least for me.
Right. I would say the same.
I don't want anybody else to go through it, but
right.
I might have done it again just because I've learned so much. And I can hear it in you, too. And I loved your attitude about that and the strength that comes through it, because there is a time when, and I love, you know, my show is Stand Up and Speak Up, and it's all about the woman behind the smile. And I mentioned this to you earlier that, you know, you could have just hid behind a rock and just hid behind that smile, and you might have done that for a few years. But when did you come out public with this story?
You know, I've been talking about it pretty much since it happened. Because of the counseling, I've been very open about it really my whole life. I remember, now the rape I didn't. The rape I didn't talk about until I was 19. I didn't tell anybody about that because I was ashamed, because I had made unhealthy choices and gotten myself into a situation, and so I was blaming myself. And it wasn't until that person came back into my circle of people and friends that I confided in my then boyfriend about it. So when I was 20 or 2021, I was in college at US up in Gainesville, and I was in a travel and recreation group, and one of the parents of another person in this group had a home on the beach in Ormond Beach, and they every semester would basically let us party. I was 21, so we could drink. So they took our keys away. They had all the food and drink, and we stayed in the house, you know, so we could party to celebrate the end of the semester. And we carpooled, and I drove 2 other women, and somehow we got on this topic, and I said, the statistic was and still is, 1 in 3 women will have had some sort of sexual trauma by the time they're 21 in college, right, college age. And I said that statistic, and I said, I'm the one. I'm the one in this car. And we get to the house, and we settle in, and one of the women in the car said, I'd really like to talk to you. Can we go for a walk? And I said, sure. So we walk along the beach, and she said, you know, I was so moved by your honesty and your courage in sharing your story that it motivated me to share mine. And I was the first person she told of a long-time abuse by an older cousin. Whenever she would go to India, back to India to visit family, he would molest her and do very inappropriate things. And she had never told anybody. She just stopped going back to India, and she wouldn't tell anybody why. So I've actually been, because I've been so comfortable and so honest about sharing my story, it's given other people permission to share theirs. And that is so powerful, and to get it out of your body. I've been the first person many people have shared their story with, because I'm so, people tell me their deepest, darkest secrets, no matter what it is, no matter how long I've known them, like literally in the movie theater lines. I've got some crazy stories. So it doesn't ever surprise me. And I still hold the space of love and appreciation and courage and support to allow them to share their story.
Right.
And it's so freeing.
I'm going back a little bit because you've done a lot of writing, and I know in my experience that writing, especially writing out the story and what has happened, releases you from the emotions of that story. Still your life, but it hasn't become the only part of your life. So by doing that, what kind of strength did you gain from, I call it from the inside out, by doing that? Because you've written a lot.
Yeah, I've written a lot. Yeah, it's always been a part of me. That actually, in middle school, that was my goal. I wanted to be a writer. And I found journalism in high school, loved it, got to college, hated it, just like the journalistic style of writing, and I found photography. I found photojournalism, and so for over 20 years, I have concentrated in that area and always knew that I wanted to eventually combine those two passions. And I've always written in journals and written my own, pieces and social media. I am working on a book, and I am a photographer for a local magazine called everythingbrevard.com. It is a print magazine as well as a website. And for our January issue, I wrote a story about my love letters, transformational experience. And I just asked the publisher, who is a friend of mine, also WPN, or was, that's how we met, and asked her, I really was motivated. I really loved that experience of sharing that. Can I be a regular contributor? And so she said yes. So I'm going to be publishing a piece every issue on something like this, like parts of me, parts of my experience, parts of, I have so many tools to share, and this will be one of the ways that I can share it in a bigger way. So yeah, it really is healing. I have done gratitude. One of the most transformational experiences for me was sitting down and writing a list of 10 things that I was grateful for every person and every experience that contributed to traumas in my life.
And you actually have the gratitude jar. Is that what I heard? Can you explain what you do with the gratitude jar?
Yeah, the gratitude jar is a tool that I learned from one of my business coaches, Bert Oliva, who's amazing, and he suggested every night at the end of the day, write something that you're grateful for. One thing, two things, but at least one thing. And put it on a little piece of paper, fold it up, stick it in this gratitude jar, and that for 30 days. And then at the end of 30 days, every morning, you pull out one of those pieces of paper to start your day with remembering something specific that you have been grateful for. So then you're living through the day, you're starting the day and living through the day of having gratitude for something that really happened. And to remember. So it'll bring you back to that space of gratitude. And gratitude is so amazingly healing, and that's a really fun way to do it. It's a great thing to do with your kids. I've got clients who have kids that do this. That's a tool I've shared, and they all do it as a family. At the end of the day, each person, some people have their own jar. The kids each have their own jar. Some have a family jar. Yeah, so it's a fun tool.
I've actually used that as a tool, as a prompt for writing in a journal. When you pull it out in the morning, that prompt that you pull out, that becomes your grateful journey for the day. And I'm just sitting here trying to figure it out. Like, you'd have to have one jar where they go in at night and one jar they come out in the morning. So you think two gratitude jars. Right. Yeah, 2 gratitude jars. But I do I'm looking at the article that you wrote. It was like, You Are My Heart, How to Write a Love Letter to Yourself. Why is it important to write a love letter to yourself? I laugh all the time. I'm smiling all the time. I do bring the fun into a room. And I would look in the mirror and say really nasty things to myself. And I've not even during COVID. It was actually before COVID. I had gained 40 pounds. Once I said, like, I told the universe, I am sharing my story on a big way. Like, I'm going to go on podcasts and stages, and, I'm really going to put myself out there. My subconscious went, okay, here's 40 pounds for you. And that's 100 pounds over my ideal weight. And I was not happy. I'd been working out with a personal trainer all last year, still do.
And I was like up and down 10 pounds. And I just was like, I've done so much healing work. I've done so much integration. Can I please let go of this weight? Like, what is going on? You know, I've developed my spiritual side in amazing, beautiful ways. What is happening? Like, I don't know what else to do. So I really was in a kind of a space of, okay, spiritual team, like, I've done all the things you've told me to do, and it's still here. Like, what is going on? You know, I know this is a protective mechanism for me. Mm-hmm. You know, I know that I'm safe. Why is my body still not responding in that way? And I had a dream where my future self came to me and said, tell me about your love letter sessions. And I responded, it's not about the client falling in love with you. It's about you falling in love with yourself. And I woke up thinking, as a photographer, I immediately went to that photography space and thought, oh, love letter sessions, you know, Valentine's Day is coming up. That could be fun with couples, or, you know, I'll think about it. Well, I went into meditation and realized it has nothing to do with photography. I needed to write myself love letters every day. And so I committed to doing it for 30 days. And every day I wrote myself a love letter. And about 10 days in, I realized, wow, I'm actually teaching myself how to love myself. It was the coolest thing ever. And I realized that it's a way of really getting in tune with who I am. Because one of my questions was, you know, everybody says, oh, you got to love yourself first before you can love anybody else truly. Or, you know, I'm single and I would love to be in a committed long-term relationship. And I've been doing all this healing work, not for that reason, but, you know, I know that will contribute and help with it. And because I don't want the kind of experiences I've had with men prior to now. So I wanted to make some changes. But I kept thinking, like, well, what does that even mean? How do we love ourselves? Like, I'm confident. I'm a great photographer. I'm a great friend. You know, what does that really mean? And so starting to write these love letters really helped me better understand what that means for me. It's going to be different for everybody. And so the importance of it is that we teach ourselves how to level up our love for ourselves. Like, I have love for myself before I started doing this, and this just amplified it and taught me how to speak to myself again. You know, I used to walk by reflections in the mirror and be like, oh, girl, look at that. You know, you're looking good. And I stopped doing that, and I didn't like that feeling anymore. So this was a way that I was able to change it, matured in a way that is right for me, for who I am today, and really just got me to the core of myself again and learned who that really is. You know, from the molestation and the rape and the domestic violence, like, so I was split into so many parts. I didn't really know who I was as a whole. And so this experience really helped me figure out what that looks like and who I can be as a whole integrated person.
It's interesting, though, to actually do it, because it made me laugh or giggle when you said, you know, walk in front of the mirror and go, ooh, girl. Because I know when I walk in the mirror, a lot of times we're so self-critical. I'm thinking, oh, well, you know, there's a few extra pounds on that hip, or it's not, you know, gravity's getting you or whatever, and it's so self-deprecating. I'm thinking, why do we do that? You know, why don't we just say, your hair looks great today? And maybe that's one of the letters, is look at the simple things. Because if we look at the whole package, we're going, oh, you can blow holes in the whole package. But if you look at, you know, your nails might look good today. Or your,
absolutely.
Yeah. You know, and as we get older, things change. So let's be happy with not having to pluck eyebrows if there's no eyebrows. For instance.
Yeah. Like you said in your intro, you know, it's all about changing the perception and the perspective of our experiences.
Well, can we just go? I love this idea of the love letter, because I know I could probably start it. I love journaling, and I did it during my scam. I did it for 2 years every day. I had 4,000 pages. Well, then when I met the fellow that I ended up marrying, my husband, I stopped journaling. I mean, I've got 2 years worth of awful experiences, which I thought were wonderful. And I'm looking back at that knowing, okay, and I've chronicled one of the worst times in my life, but I'm not journaling the happy times in my life.
The best time. Mm-hmm.
So how do we go about starting to write those love letters? And I loved in your article, you actually gave 10 steps.
Yeah. Well, I've started doing webinars, freebie webinars that lead into a 30-day transformational experience where I'm able to support a group of people. We meet weekly, even though everybody else, they're all doing their letters every day. Then we gather as a group every week to offer support of one another, because doing this brings up stuff, right? Like, brings up the things that need to be healed. It brings up some insecurities. It brings up things that people don't even think are going to come up. And so I love to be able to support them through that, through those experiences, through those blocks, through those whatever it is. And I also love celebrating the getting through those things, and the realizations and the light bulb moments of, when it finally clicks that they're shifting or their confidence is building. And so I am sharing this. That's part of my purpose in this life, is to share things like this, to bring more love and healing into the world. So to start it is really committing to it, making the decision that you want something to change. You don't need to know how it's going to change or how this is going to impact you, because it's an individual experience. It's going to impact everybody differently. I released 10 pounds doing this process. And I wasn't even trying. But because I was shifting my perspective about myself, I was happier. So I was making better choices for myself. So that's how it worked for me. I have another person in my group that she's been wanting to ask for a raise at her job for like 4 years. And doing this process, she finally built up enough confidence to ask and felt deserving and, really internalized that she was deserving of it and she was going to ask for it. And they said yes. So it's going to be different for everybody. So the first way, the thing to do it is just commit. Just know that you want to make some changes, and this is a way that it can happen. And then schedule it into your day. So I have a morning routine. I don't schedule anything except you today before 10 o'clock.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me. I'm honored. Because that's my morning routine. I get up, I get my coffee, I get my tea, I, play with the dogs a little bit, and then I go grab the journals, all my multiple colored pens, and I sit on the back porch and I journal and meditate. And sometimes that's a 20-minute experience. Sometimes it's 2 hours. But I give myself until 10, and then from there, I usually work out, or I have meetings with clients, or, I get my day started. Now, I'm working until like 10 o'clock at night as well. So create some sort of routine, whether it's in the morning or the evening, at lunch, do something, have a dedicated journal for it. It's a really special experience, and it should be honored and treated that way. And just do it. Commit to doing it. It takes a minimum of 21 days to make or break a habit. So that's why the 30 days, solidifies it a little bit more than just the 21, and it's 30 consecutive days. So if you miss a day, your 30 days starts over.
Well, and I was just thinking that it would be really nice. I mean, I love getting letters in the mail. Not necessarily text or emails. Like, I like getting a letter, a snail mail letter. So maybe if you're doing this to yourself, buy a little, little nice, pretty pad of paper or little, I don't know, nice little card that you send to yourself. Yeah. Make it special. That might kick in rather than pulling out a piece of copy paper from your printer.
Oh no, yeah. Get a pretty journal. I love the stationery idea. Absolutely.
Yeah, well, that's fun, and it is committing, and just setting a time. I mean, me too. That it's so easy to get up. My husband gets up early, and he's out of the house by 6, so I have a choice. I can get up and do my scriptures or start reading or doing something like that before I go to work, which is in my office, which is right down the hallway from my bedroom.
Down the hall, right?
Or I can flip through the news real quick, flip off the light, set the alarm for an hour and a half, 90 minutes to get that REM sleep. That's my choice. And if I choose number 2 and hit this, light and go back to sleep, and I don't get that hour and a half, then I wake up and I'm tired. And I'm like, why didn't I get up and go swimming? Why didn't I? And then the shoulda, coulda, wouldas all hit in.
Right. Right.
And that's no good. Then you're not grateful for anything.
That's not helpful. Right.
No, the day starts poorly.
Mm-hmm.
So I love this article. And this was an article. This was in the Everything Brevard?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. Put that on your website. So
yes.
Speaking of that, could you please let us know how to get a hold of you?
Yes.
With the puppy dog.
So you hear my dogs, yep.
They've
been so good. They're used to me. I'm actually in my office doing this because they're used to me in here talking and working with clients on the computer and stuff. So they're usually pretty quiet in here, but they're doing some construction across the street on a new house. So there's all kinds of new stuff happening. The best way is social media. I am actually working with a VA right now to get all of my website, landing pages, all of that stuff organized, email campaigns, all of that. Because in photography, it was mostly referral. I do have a photography website. And this is through 2020, the love letters and doing this coaching work with people is a big part of my life right now and will be. This is, I know, where I'm going. So that's all, I'm revamping all of that stuff. So if you follow me on Instagram, I've got 2 of them at C Stuart Photo if you're interested in photography, or my motivational speaker side is Christina M. as in Marie Stewart, Stuart. And those are really where I post and share, and you can DM me, and I'll send you a little tips thing. If you follow me and direct message me, I'll send you a little how to get centered and aligned through the chaos, which, we've all experienced quite a bit of chaos in the last year. So.
Yeah, no, that's really good. Your photography, excuse me, I've seen a lot of your work, and I know that you specialize in headshots, which was interesting because when we were talking earlier and I was talking about hiding behind the camera and now seeing through the lens, life through the lens. Yeah. What do you see? What makes you a different kind of photographer? What makes you a special photographer? This is brag time.
Well, yeah, thanks. I did, one of the parts of my bio is soul seer, SOUL-SEER, and that is me to the core. I have been complimented by many of my clients. In photojournalism, working for newspapers, I never really got feedback from the actual subjects of the people, the people I was photographing, unless I ran into them later or they took the time to send an email or something, which, people don't as often send the I love this stuff kind of emails. So when I got into freelance full-time and got into Women's Prosperity Network and my own business, I started getting that feedback directly. And so many people who don't know each other, who I would photograph, would say, man, you really captured the essence of me, who I am or who my relationship is, like the dynamic of my family, my dogs, you captured our personalities and our true essence. I see people in their best light, and I help them get out of their own way and shine it so brightly that I freeze it on film. I freeze it in the camera and help them share it with the world. So it's that gift of, the people who tell me their deepest, darkest secrets in the lines at the movie theaters, right? With 5 minutes of knowing me, I'm going to know everything about them. And that skill is innate. It's what I was born with. And I've just translated that into my photography. And so our sessions are fun. They forget the camera's there, even with my 6-inch long lens.
Yeah, it's a big camera.
It's a big camera, a big lens. They totally forget it's there. People who, I very often get, I'm so not photogenic. And I always look silly in pictures, right? There's that self-deprecating, self-critical side of us. And I very confidently say, well, you've never been photographed by me. And then when we're done, they say, oh my God, you're right. Like I've had people cry because they truly see themselves for the first time, sometimes ever, through my images. And it's because I truly see them. I see the best in people, and I bring that out in them, I guess.
So how are you doing this? How are you doing this in this atmosphere of, not being able to get out and about? Or are you just doing it locally? Can you still do it locally?
I still do. I still work for the magazine, so I'm doing some limited things with them, local stuff. My specialty is people, so I have done some photography, and I've put the camera down quite a bit, and I've shifted into using those skills in a modality that it's called soul language. I'm a certified practitioner, so I've actually moved into a soul coaching space. People were, especially last year, were questioning their purpose. It was a time that, we were given the time to pause and reflect. We were forced to. And so people started looking at their lives and saying, wait a minute, either they were forced to change, their jobs changed, their businesses changed, those kinds of things, their relationships changed. They were forced to look at those things and didn't know where to go or what to do with that. And I was called to really share that message in a bigger way. So I've actually started doing soul coaching that I connect with people on a soul level and help them clear those blocks, find their, I introduce people to their life purpose in one session, and then support them in creating that, living the life that is right for who they are and what they're supposed to be doing in this world. And so my people are making more money. They're feeling better, happier. They're loving themselves more. This Love Letters experience is an extension of that, because I know my goal in this life is to help bring more love and healing to the world. I've bravely put the camera down because it was something that I was hiding behind. And I still am a shooter. I'm still a photographer. I still love it. I'm going to be a photographer forever. I see the world in pictures. I dream in pictures. And I have the confidence to put that down and go where I'm called. And this is the direction right now.
There you go. Well, I'm going to sign you up, though, before you put the camera down for life.
Yes.
I'm probably due for some new pictures, and you do some absolutely phenomenal work. And I'm looking at your picture on my promo right now. It's just so pretty and just very gentle, and I love the smile, and I love the giggles that go along with it. So we had talked about maybe bringing Dr. Tim McGuinness in. Tim is actually the founder of the Society of Citizens Against Relationship Scams, or SCARS, and I'm on the board of SCARS. We deal with a lot of women and men that have been in a romance relationship fraud that have been through the trauma, much of the trauma that you've talked about. And Dr. Tim, are you there?
I am.
Hey, Tim. Briefly, your thoughts about, I love Christina, so you got to be kind. The stories. Tim, we had talked about maybe, speaking up the stories and how that's important for our audience and, the audience that Christina is reaching.
One of the things that occurs to me immediately, and I'll just get this out of the way, I think collectively we should stop using the word story, because story connotates fiction in a manner.
Made up.
These are not stories. These are histories. Now, that's just one thought for the moment. But the bottom line is, listening to your story, listening to your history, there are so many parallels with the experiences that traumatized romance and relationship scam victims go through. The details of the moment are obviously different from a physical abusive situation to a purely psychological one. But at the end of the day, people come out traumatized. And trauma has many of the same characteristics, regardless of the methods that produced it, in terms of how to recover, how to regain your life, and how to find purpose and self-worth at the end of that process. So it would be great to have a conversation after this to explore some of those commonalities. But one of the things that I thought was so beneficial was your experience in working with a group. We also do that. We have a number of groups, and the great challenge is to get victims comfortable enough. And I say victims because once you've recovered, you're a survivor. You are a survivor, for example. Debbie is a survivor. But until you reach that point, to some extent, you've adopted the persona of being a victim, and there's the challenge of how to get people past that. We're not psychologists. We're a registered crime victims assistance provider. I myself am an anthropologist and 14 zillion other things, but the bottom line in all of this is that we do deal with trauma on a profound basis, and victims have great difficulty making their way through it. Now, we're dealing with people through the entire traumatic life cycle, so to speak, whereas in your particular case, and I don't mean to diminish this in any way, so please don't take it that way, but you dealt with it over a span of much longer years than the victims that we typically deal with. The life cycle for the people that we assist is typically 2 to 3 years. So it obviously begins in the total and complete panic and shock, and it makes its way through the 5 stages of grief, but we also deal with a strange component, which is addiction, because scam victims are actually addicts. That relationship to them was fulfilling the drivers that create this cocktail of hormones that keeps them addicted to the scam until they're completely confronted with reality. I think one of the things that I heard in there that I thought would be particularly interesting is your skill in photography, while at the same time your skill in helping trauma victims resolve their trauma. What if you were to focus on using photography, something you love, as a therapeutic tool? In other words, instead of making it something to the side, make it an integral component into a process of recovery, using photography as a vehicle that would allow victims of sexual abuse, domestic abuse, psychological abuse, whatever the case may be, to use photography as both a means of expression, a means of finding their voice, a means of finding self-worth, and also a means to begin to talk about the topics that so profoundly affected them. I think you're in a really unique position that might actually help you find a keel or a center balance amongst all the skills that you bring to the table that might be unique. And if you'd be interested, we'd love to talk about how that might benefit our audience as well as your own.
Yeah, thank you so much. That's beautiful, beautiful insight, and I love the work that you're doing because it is so absolutely necessary. And I agree, healing is, in those first couple of years, right after the experience is really, really important, and it is a lifelong journey. We're always healing and growing as we evolve. Some new parts going to show up that we may not have realized was still there. And I actually, I am working on a book that you just described. So I already have that in the process. So I would love to expand that and that thinking with you because I absolutely recognize my gifts in healing and healing with the camera and helping others heal with the camera and the images and really truly see themselves. So that is a book that I am working on as well, is a book of portraits of sexual trauma, but I know trauma is all over in all kinds of different areas of our lives. It's not always sexual, and trauma is trauma. And asking that the subjects, the people in the book in front of the camera, share their healing journey. Because I agree, until they start doing their healing work, they're still in that victim mentality. And I really want to focus and share the healing journeys. The story of their trauma will shine through in that, and the healing is the important part. Where do you move forward from that space? to get the other people to share that story, to get them into not reliving the trauma, but focusing on the positive and focusing on the healing and sharing that, because the victims don't know. You know, they don't know where to go. They don't know who to talk to, if they're feeling confident enough to talk at all. You know, the shame
Can I interrupt
that
for a
goes
second?
along with it. Yeah.
One of the things that we find is actually quite problematic is there are vast numbers of instant experts, and I don't categorize you as that. But in our world, and in virtually any area of trauma, you have individuals who don't put in the work and the effort really to understand both what happened to them and the processes that other victims go through. They flip on a switch. Immediately after the event occurred, they're now an instant expert. This is something known as the Savior syndrome, also called the Messiah syndrome. And it's a delusional state, and it's a form of mental illness. But it is profoundly extant in the world we live in. And we see this in the talking heads on the news media, et cetera. Everybody's an expert on something instantaneously. And one of the things that's interesting about this is how many victims, when you say that they don't know where to go, unfortunately, a majority of victims end up in the hands of someone who is actually doing them more harm than good.
Yeah.
They're leading him in the wrong directions, and it is actually people who suffer from the Messiah syndrome are actually extraordinarily selfish. It's all about validating them and their victimhood rather than actually helping someone else. So you're clearly not that case. So don't misconstrue what I'm saying. But we find that the majority of victims never get the help that they need simply because of this one issue alone, because they end up in the hands of some charlatan, and they think that that's what recovery looks like. They're repelled by it and never move forward.
Well,
that's an excellent point. Absolutely.
It is. And I love the fact that I was going back to your book, though, because I found, too, that many victims will really turn into the survivors once they tell the story and realize that they're not alone. And,
Absolutely.
you know, I'm looking at, you know, the area of photography, and the thing that's striking me is the lenses of your camera. And that if you look at that as life, you know, you've got the lens that focuses right down on the nose, and then you have the one that's the wide angle or the panoramic, you know. So in a therapeutic type of a thing, you know, we've got to get people to move away from just focusing on that negative and looking at, like I like to say, it's the eternal perspective. Why did it happen? It happened for us, not to us, and that takes time to understand. But I love how your take on life and how positive it is, and you know, you're part of that Pollyanna group that I am, and it's okay, because we need to be able to find the good in what is presumably bad, because in the long run it has made us better people. And your trauma has made you an extraordinary woman, strong, you know, opinionated but kind. And just pleasant to be around, and that's lovely. You know?
Thank you.
We don't have that with everybody in our lives. So thank you, Dr. Tim, for your insight. That's really nice. Yes. And Christina, one last time, how can people get a hold of you, either for the photography or for your love letters and your soul searching, soul coaching?
Instagram, I'm on Facebook, Christina Stewart Photography. On Instagram, it's at C Stewart Photo, and Christina M. Stewart for the motivational side, both on Facebook and on Instagram for both of those. And that's really the best way right now. Like I said, I'm doing the love letters. I will eventually have the domain. I have the domain, and she's setting it up, loveletterswithchristina.com. And, yeah, that's the best way to reach me. Direct message me.
We started this out saying we're befriending the monster under the bed, and we were laughing because it was probably the boogeyman in the closet and the monster under the bed. But the point is, we all have stuff that's happened to us. Grab it, shake it, throw it away, and move on and help someone else that has that same monster somewhere.
Well, it's not even shaking it and throwing away. For me, it's having the conversation with it. Because
there you go.
Truly, the monster's just as scared as you are. So, have that conversation. What is your purpose? Why are you here? It's learning from it is how you can turn it into a gift and how you can show some gratitude for it.
Well, and like your life, like mine, some of the bad stuff has become our purpose and passion. So it's not so bad anymore, and that's really important to understand. So thank you so much for coming with us today and for changing up your morning routine and shaking it up and being a really special guest. I truly, truly appreciate you. So stay on after we shut it down. I want you to stay on and talk to some of the folks that are here with us.
I will.
Okay?
I will. Thank you. And thank you for having me, Debbie. It's been an honor.
Absolutely.
And I just want to say I remember photographing you. I think it was the first time you were on a big stage sharing your story at Women's Prosperity Network's Unconference.
Yep.
And how moving and inspirational. And it's been so fun to watch your journey, and you are an inspiration to me in stepping forward and in a bigger way, and I'm just honored to be witness to your journey. So thank you for standing up and speaking out.
Well, thank you so much. Bless your heart. Yeah, I remember that, standing up on that stage going, why am I here?
Yeah.
How do I do this?
I love it. Yeah.
So,
great.
Standing up and speaking up and having friends there to kick you in the butt and to hold your hand at the same time is truly important. And lots of fun. So thank you so much. So thank you, everybody, for listening to Stand Up and Speak Up. We are dedicated to encouraging you to remove the mask of embarrassment and to being your best self. If you've been a victim of a scam or cybercrime, please visit againstscams.org for assistance and guidance about options and recovery. SCARS, which is a Society of Citizens Against Relationship Scams, is an incorporated nonprofit crime victims assistance organization based here in Miami, Florida. We support scam victims worldwide, and if you can donate a little bit, we would certainly appreciate it. This episode has been sponsored by BenfoComplete.com, a vitamin supplement company that supports happy and healthy hands and feet for those with neuropathy. If you or any one of you struggles with the pins and needles and numbness in your hands and feet, check out our benfotiamine products at BenfoComplete.com and use the special code STANDUP for 5% discount. Again, thanks, everybody. Go to my website, thewomanbehindthesmile.com, for additional information and resources, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. We'll take this replay and we'll put it on YouTube, and we really would like to get people to hear the stories and to understand, about those monsters under the bed and how we can change our lives and giggle through some of the trauma. It's important, and life's too short for us to be under a rock. So thanks very much, everybody. Thanks to my guests. Have a wonderful day, and we will see y'all next week.